Hi, welcome to Cornelia Unravels-A knitting podcast. My name is Cornelia and this is my little place on the internet to talk about all of my knitting. This is episode 5 and it has been a while since I recorded my last episode. Life got in the way, my disorganization got in the way, and regardless, I'm happy to be back. This is the 5th time I have tried to record this introduction because Watson, who you may be able to hear rolling around on the floor, he is my dog. He has tried to gain my attention because he hasn't liked the fact that I'm talking to a camera instead of paying attention to him. So, as I said, my name is Cornelia. I live in Melbourne, Australia with my husband Dean and my dog Watson and 2 cats, Susie and Jemima. Like I said, I'm very excited to be back. I've got a couple of finished objects, probably not as many as I would like given the time between my podcasts, but that's okay. And I have plenty of works in progress to share with you. I've got a few acquisitions and an exciting project that I am working on that I'm going to share a little bit about with you in my stash feature kind of section of my podcast. So if you are coming back to watch again, thank you so much and welcome back. And if you are new, welcome, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so we'll jump into finished objects. My first finished object, this is me. I forget that I need to say things. You can find me on Instagram at Cornelia_crafty escapades. So I'm not the most regular poster, but you can find me there. And I'm sorry if you can hear my cat underneath the bed hissing at the dog because they don't want me to record a podcast. And now my husband is ringing me. So I'll be back. And back. I'm back. I'm back. Let's see if this works now. Okay, so finished objects. My first finished object is an exciting one because it's a big one. This is my Dear Duomo sweater. It is by Suenghee Knits and is knit bottom up. So if you watched my last podcast, I'm confused as to what I've shared with you because I did actually record a podcast a few weeks ago and then I never got around to editing it, and then by the time I decided I could edit it, it felt like it was too far gone. So I think the last time you saw this, I had only done some of the bottom ribbing. Otherwise, you saw it with half a sleeve. I'm not sure. But regardless, it's finished now. It has been worn a few times. I did finish it a few weeks ago. Both of my finished objects that I'm going to show with you today, I have worn a few times. So they're not in perfect, pristine, just blocked condition. They are in worn condition, but that's fine. They still look beautiful. So this is it here. Hopefully you can see it all. Hold it up against me. So it is knit bottom up, and then you split for the front and the back. It is knit in Qing fibre dashing DK in the colourway Neon Groove. So there's a close-up. It's quite an interesting colourway because it's kind of quite pastel, but then also in some lights, the neon yellow really is quite neon-y. I don't really know that it's showing up on camera. So some parts of it can look quite bright. But I do really like it. I was concerned that the yarn was going to pill quite a lot because it's really soft yarn when you're knitting with it. And it has a tiny bit. You can kind of see a few bits along here. That's one bigger one, but it's gone now. It is a tiny bit, but not really, not as much as I expected it was going to, so that's good. And actually once it blocked out, once I blocked it, it has really nice stitch definition. It did beforehand, but when blocking it, yeah, the stitch definition just kind of everything relaxed, and it looks really nice. So I'm really happy with this. It's really comfortable. It's probably the best fitting item of clothing that I've made myself so far, which is nice. The only thing is that because it's knit bottom up and it is my first bottom up garment, I wasn't really sure, although I suppose I could have measured better than I did. I wasn't really sure how long to do the length up to my underarm. So I probably could have knit it a little bit longer. In saying that, it's fine with a pair of high-waisted jeans. I made a mistake. Both of my cuffs are cast off slightly differently, although I was attempting to do a sew and tubular bind off for both of them, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work. So it kind of feels a little bit funny on. If I pay attention to it, one's a little bit tighter than the other one, but again, it doesn't really matter too much. It's not something I'm going to go back and undo and fix, and I really like it. So that's the Dear Duomo by Suenghee Knits. Oops, that's the way around. So, first finished object, I'm really happy with it, and I would definitely recommend the pattern, and I would also recommend the yarn if you are happy with it pilling a little bit, which I think is just the nature of wool anyway. Then this is definitely something that I would recommend knitting. It has actually been washed twice. I went to wear it to the Bendigo Sheep and Wool show, and we were on a bit of a time crunch. I had an appointment in the morning, and we then drove to Bendigo, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, but we then drove to Bendigo and we were eating in the car, and I had a burger and it had sauce, and I spilt it all down the front of this on the way there. So I didn't get to wear it there, and it needed a wash, but it did come out in the wash really easily. So I just re-washed it in wool wash, and I didn't bother pinning it out again. I just laid it flat to dry, and it came up perfectly. So that's a bonus for me, because I would have been pretty devastated if it didn't come out. My second finished object is, I probably should have put these on sock blockers because they kind of look a little bit comical now that I have worn them. But these are the Spring Rain socks. They are knit in a yarn that I don't remember, and Watson ate the tag. That's going to be a theme in this episode. Ate the ball band. So I'm not sure what the yarn is. You can tell that they're worn because they've got fluff and stuff on them. But these are the Spring Rain socks. They are by Natasha of Northern Knits and Pearls. And I have knit this pair of socks once before. I knit it for Mum, but I knit two pattern for Mum. These ones I changed slightly. Instead of doing a full length cuff, I just did I believe the stated number of rows. If not, I did 5 less. I may have done 5 less rows for the cuff. I think this is a 15 round cuff. And then I did the pattern underneath the cuff, and then I knit 10 rounds before I started the heel flap. So instead of knitting the full length cuff, I wanted to make a pair of Shorty socks, and I'm really pleased with how they have turned out. They fit really well. The day that I wore them, they didn't slide down at all. I didn't end up with the heel underneath my foot, none of those sorts of things. So I'm really happy with those. And my third finished object is a half finished object. So even though I said I would never ever sign up for Testnet again because it's too stressful and I don't like them, I promptly signed up for a Testnet, but this time it was for a sock. So I figured that I would be able to knit one sock within the 2-week time frame that was given, because one sock was all that was required, and it is a sock that has a shorter cuff instead of a shorter leg, instead of a full length leg. And so I thought, yeah, I can do that. So I did. I finished my test knit duties. It wasn't particularly stressful because it was just one sock, and I really enjoyed it. So maybe test knitting socks is the only thing that I should ever test knit. In saying that, you know, it does take away time from the other things that you want to knit, but I guess that's just about choosing what you want to prioritize. I really like this pair of socks and I think they're really cute. So this sock here is the Shortcake sock, and it is by Goosecreek Knits. So the pattern is out. You can get the pattern. This is knit in Sewrella yarn, and again, she what's in? Down. Oi, down. Again, he ate the ball band. So I'm not sure which colorway it was. I know that it came in a mini set. I did buy it as a sock set. It came with the colorway Bear as the contrast color, but I haven't used that in this sock. I just knit it in one color. And yeah, that's about it. This is what the yarn looks like in the skein. So it's just a variegated blue. And this yarn was a part of her library collection, book collection. I'm pretty sure. I think. Anyway. So I've got a lot left. Obviously, I've only knit one sock, but even after I knit the second sock, I still will have enough of the skein left to do another pair of socks. And for the second pair of socks, I'll use the mini skein. I could have used a contrasting color for the heel and the toe, but I decided not to because her original that she had made was just in one color, and I did quite like the look of this sock in one color. Sorry, her, I'm referring to Goosecreek Knits. So yes, this is the sock here. It just has a really cute little ruffle. As we know on this podcast, I like ruffly socks, so that was what made me want to knit these, try another ruffle, try another pair of ruffly socks, and to see if I like them. And yeah, I'm really happy with them. I think it's cute, or with it. So I will get casting on the second sock very soon. There's a close-up. Oh, there's a close-up of the heel and a close-up of the ruffle. So those are my finished objects. The next segment of my podcast is works in progress, and I have plenty of those to share with you today. I will start with the biggest one, biggest in size, and then we'll go down to my quite a few sock whips that I have to share with you. So my first work in progress is my colouring book Raglan. So you will have seen this on the podcast before, but only a little bit. I think I just started the neck. Then after that, I had done the Raglan increases, or at least half of the Raglan increases, and discovered that I had made a mistake. And so I had to rip back quite a few rows to fix it up. And then one day I sat down and I had a day where I went through and fixed everything that I had, partly finished or things like that, that I needed to do something with, whether that was rip back and fix a mistake, whether that was do something complicated that I needed to concentrate on and maybe I needed to watch a YouTube video for. And so I did sit down and I ripped back the rows that I needed to on this. And then since then I have almost finished. So this is it here. The color of the contrast stripes doesn't show up very well on camera. They show up as quite navy blue, bright navy blue, I would say. But in reality, it's a bit more of a petrol-y green, greeny blue. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe in my... No, it really doesn't show up. If I put it back here. No, not even if I put it all the way back here. This colour just doesn't show up on camera. Even when I've taken a photo of it, it hasn't done. It just shows up as I'm just trying all the things to see if I can make it look like the colour. No, not even on my head. So it's definitely more greeny blue. It is a blue, but it is more, I don't know, maybe even like mallard duck. I'm going to stop trying to explain this colorway because I don't think it's doing me any favors. But this is the contrast color. It is by Prosper Yarn. And I have knit 4 stripes in the contrast color. In the pattern, it calls for 3, but I had a couple of sizing issues. I did swatch for this quite a while ago. I know I did share the swatch on the podcast. My gauge was tight. It usually is. And I think I intended to go up a needle size to knit it. Then I got to the bottom and went to knit the ribbing and discovered that I didn't need to change needle sizes to the ribbing needle size because I was already using it. So I think I knit the whole thing on a size smaller needle than I needed to. And then the second issue that I had was, even though I am very sure that I followed the Raglan increases in the pattern, I had written everything down, I was ticking off my rows, somehow I ended up with a size smaller than I wanted when I got down to the split for the sleeves. So it doesn't have as much ease as it was going to. I had intended for it to have the recommended amount of positive ease in the pattern, but it doesn't. And then also because of that, it seems like the Raglan increases in the yoke is a bit shorter on me, so the top stripe starts a bit sooner, and so only 3 stripes would have made for a very, very cropped top. And I do like having a cropped jumper because I can wear it with high-waisted jeans, or with a skirt if I want to as well, but that was going to be too cropped, not what I was looking for. So I did end up knitting a 4th stripe. So now I just have to decide what to do with the sleeve. The sleeves in the pattern are kind of a 3/4 length sleeve, so I'm just going to have to decide if I do 3 stripes or if I do 4 stripes and match the length of the jumper. So I think I'll try it on after I've done the recommended number of decreases in the pattern and get to whatever that measurement is and see where it sits on my arm, even if it sits, here or just below my elbow. That would be nice. So I'll do that and then see where that takes me. So this is the colouring book Raglan. It is knit in Stress Knits yarn in the colourway Sunflower. I'll write that down the bottom if that's not correct. And in Prosper Yarn as well, and I can't remember the name of that colourway. So I really like it. It does fit really nicely. I have tried it on. Hopefully I'll have that finished by the next podcast. My next work in progress is a sock. The next 3 works in progress are going to be socks. This one is in my Crystal Cat Stitchery bag, which I think is my favourite bag that I have. Maybe I do have 2 new bags that I'll share in acquisitions, and they might also be some of my favourite new bags, but I do really love this bag. It's just so cute. So this is a sock pattern by Julianne Knitter, and I'm knitting it in the Cloudburst mini set by Owl of Athena Fibres, or Owl of Athena Fibre Arts. Ooh, there we go. If I put it there, it'll focus. So I love her logo. It's really cute. So it's this sock pattern here. As you can see, is a colorwork sock. And I've just done the cloud pattern, and then I'm about to do the second color of the raindrops, I think. So this has a fade. Yeah, that's all of them. This has like a fade scenario with the little raindrops going from darkest to lightest down the sock. So those are the mini skeins. And then this is the main color. And then this is the mini skein for the clouds. There we go. So, and then the foot has stripes in these colors as well. So it's going to be really cute. It's been set aside for a little bit because I needed to wind the mini skeins. That was one of my things that I sat down and did on the same day that I ripped back the yoke of the colouring book Raglan. I sat down and I wound some yarn that I needed to in order to continue on with projects. But in that meantime, I've been knitting on another sock, and then I did the test knit sock as well. So this one has sat aside for a little bit, but I will be getting back to it soon. I recently as in last night, took stock of my whips. I got them all out and wrote down on the notepad on my phone what I had, and actually I was surprised at not necessarily how few I had. I have less than I normally would do, but I am quite close to finishing some of them. So one of them is the colouring book Raglan, and it doesn't have full length sleeves, and I only have a sleeve and a bit to do. And then 3, I'm looking next to me to see what I've got with me. I think 4 of the other works in progress that I had were socks. So, and that includes a second sock for the test knit socks. So, I mean, I've already finished one of those. I'm already nearly finished the first sock of another sock, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So, I think if I sit down and put some dedicated time into some sock knitting and some sleeve knitting, then my work in progress pile will significantly diminish, and I will have many more finished objects to share with you on my next couple of podcasts. So, my next sock is this one here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it in a position that's easy to show you with the needles on it. Based on where I am in the row, it's going to look a little wonky. So this is my next sock. So this is the Totally Rad Ribbed Sock by Summer Lee Designs. She has a couple of options in the pattern in regards to the number of stripes you do, and also in regards to the length of the ribbing that you do on the leg. So I chose to just do the 2 stripes option and the shorter ribbing length as well. And this is knit in Full Moon Fibres. The main colour is called Personal Bubble, and it's just a really bright purple with a bit of pink in it. And then the mini skein is called Imposters Imposter. So I said to Dean earlier today that it's kind of like a bright but grungy sock. The toe will be knit, in this colour as well. And I'm crossing my fingers I'm going to have enough yarn. I am just using a 50-gram skein, which is partly why I chose the shorter length leg, but also I tend to like shorter length socks anyway. My calves aren't the smallest, so if I have a longer sock, then it makes it quite difficult for me to push the sock on and it actually sit higher up my leg, because I would need to do a really stretchy cast on, or I'd need to cast on more stitches. So it's just easier, and just my preference anyway with socks in general, to wear socks that are of a shorter length. So I am crossing my fingers that I'm going to have enough yarn. I did weigh it after I had done the leg and seemed to be tracking okay, but every time I look at the skein I feel like there's not much there. So I'm not too far away from finishing the foot. Maybe I am. But I'll weigh it again and I will see. And if I don't have enough, then I'll problem solve what I'm going to do about that. But I'm really enjoying this sock. I've really enjoyed knitting the leg. And then it's really nice just doing some mindless stockinette now for the foot. I didn't think I would ever be a vanilla socks person, as in just knitting straight stockinette for the leg and the cuff, but I do have a couple of yarns in my stash that I don't think suit themselves to a pattern, and I think I might try just knit some vanilla socks. And if knitting a vanilla sock is like it is knitting the foot of this, well then it's kind of enjoyable when you're trying to do other things. We've been watching the CrossFit Games and it's been nice to just be able to knit around and around and not really have to concentrate on anything. So that's the Totally Rad Rib socks. And then my third pair of socks as a work in progress are these ones. Now these ones are on waste yarn. No, they're not actually. I was going to put them on waste yarn and then I didn't. When I started this test knit sock, I started on just a set of needles that were spare, which were my higher sharp 9-inch circular needles, and also with a different yarn. I wasn't using this yarn, I was using a different yarn. And whether it was the yarn, whether it was the needles, whether it was a combination of both, it was not working for me. I was not enjoying it. So I ripped it out. I hadn't done very much. I'd only done about maybe a centimetre of the leg, and the ruffle gets put on last. So I'd really not done much. And I changed to my Qiaogu needles, which were on this pair of socks. So I also changed the yarn. That means I'm not really sure if it was the yarn that was the problem or if it was the needles that were the problem the first time I was trying to knit the test knit pair. But in the end, I did use my Qiaogu 9-inch circulars for that one, and I just put my highs on this one. So this is another Summerlee Designs sock. This one is the Weekend Shorty sock, and it's in a little bit of a weird place to show you. It just looks really messy because I've got yarn ends from changing the colors and it's at the heel flap stage. So I've just finished the heel turn and I'm about to pick up the stitches, ready to do the gusset decreases and pick up the stitches in the main color again. So the main color is actually this gray. It just hasn't shown up much yet because you do a longer cuff, and this is in 2x1 rib, which was interesting to do. And then the heel flap is in another different color, heel turn is in another different color. So now the entire foot will be in the gray, and then the toe will be in another different color again, or maybe another 2 different colors. So this is going to be a fun sock, and the other one, I won't make it exactly the same. I will vary up the colors a little bit so that I have 2 matching but mismatched socks, which is something that I quite like. I like matching but mismatched things. So that's the Weekend Shorty sock by Summerlee Designs. Dean just handed me a coffee, which is a very welcome addition to my podcasting. So here is my coffee. Hopefully you've got something nice that you are drinking while you're watching, or that you actually have some knitting with you while you're watching as well. I didn't mention that at the start. So this segment of my podcast is what I call my other knits and pieces, which is, I just put that in there as an opportunity to have random knitting thoughts and talk about random knitting things. So my random knitting thought for today is, what do you call one of these? So I have this dilemma. Not really a dilemma, but it's kind of a funny situation that I find myself in. So I'm from New Zealand, and in New Zealand we would call this a jersey. But I live in Australia, and in Australia we would call this a jumper. In Australia, a jersey is like a football kit, the clothing that you would wear when you're playing a sport. You would wear your football jersey, you know, with your number and your team and all of those sorts of things on it. So, yes, so in Australia, I'd call this a jumper. So then, though, I'm knitting these patterns, right, that are called sweater patterns because they are, you know, designed by people who live in America. So I often don't know what I'm calling it. Sometimes I'll just call it all the things. Sometimes I will call it whichever one comes to mind first. And sometimes I will call it whatever it is based on who I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to mum, I'll call it a jersey. But if I'm talking to someone from work, I'll call it a jumper. And if I'm talking to a knitter, I might call it a sweater, because then that's kind of the closest association to where you would actually be able to find the pattern if you were wanting to look for it. So just my random question for the day is, what do you call one of these? Do you call it a jumper? Do you call it a jersey? Do you call it a sweater? Do you come from somewhere else that calls it something completely different? If you do, let me know and put it down in the comments, because I am very interested in such conversations. So, random thoughts from Cornelia today: jumper, jersey, sweater, something else. Okay, so this segment of my podcast is all about my stash features and knitting plans. So in the past, in this part of my episode, I have shown you things that I have been working on, or yarn, not so much things that I've been working on, but things that I haven't picked up for a while. And that's actually been really good, because some of those projects that I have shown you, I have frogged. Some of you I have gone on to try and finish. Some of them I have tried to go on and finish. So it's been a useful tool for me to kind of take stock of what I've got. And the other thing that I've done in that section is talked about stash yarn that I have and my plans for it. So I'm pretty sure this one was one that I did share. If it wasn't this one, there's another Skein by Full Moon Fibres that I shared when I discussed my summer sock camp knitting plans. So it's definitely been beneficial to talk about that. But this one is going to be a little bit different in that I'm going to talk about one project that I have that I'm very excited about, and a reasonably significant amount of yarn from my stash that I'm using for it. So I'm just going to plug in my phone. There we go. That's better. I am going to be using a reasonably large amount of my stash for this project, and I'm really excited about it. I had put it aside for a little while to work on some other things, and then picked it up the other night when I was talking to Lucy, who is This Nanny Knits, and while I was talking to her, we were on Zoom, I picked it up again and was working on it and got excited about it again. So that project is the Melting Marl Blanket by Stephen West. So it's going to be ginormous. I don't have a ginormous amount done yet, but this is what I have done. And basically, it is just a giant marled blanket. So you can use whatever yarn you would like to. You're holding 2 strands together. So I am using mostly fingering weight with some suri and mohair thrown in as well. And the way that I'm doing it is I am just holding so I held 2 strands together here of the same colour. Then I held 1 strand and 1 strand of the next colour until I ran out of the first colour. Then I held 2 strands of the second colour together for a bit, then changed to 1 and 1 of the next colour until I ran out again, and currently I'm holding 2 strands together of my third colour. So my goal is to use up the entire skein, the entire scrap, whatever I happen to be using for that section of the blanket. I don't want to just use a partial skein because then I'm still left over with leftovers. I am using a lot of full skeins though, and then some other yarn that was in my kind of leftovers box from other projects. So this is the box that I have full of yarn for this project. So I basically just went through my entire yarn stash and pulled out skeins of yarn that I either previously had a plan for and that was no longer my vibe anymore, or I didn't really have a plan for and I just bought it because it was pretty. And I laid them all out on the ground, and all of the ones that kind of went together I set aside, and then I organized them into kind of a fade order. So I'll try and remember to pop a picture up here. It is on my Instagram though if I forget, of all of the skeins that I have set aside. So, and there's been actually a couple more that have been added since then too. So it's just going to be a way for me to use the skeins of yarn in my stash that I do really like. I really like all of these skeins. I have no issue with them whatsoever, but I just wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. So yeah, it's just a good opportunity for me to use that, and it's going to be a really nice, squishy, cozy, huge blanket. It's going to be really big. This is, you know, bunched up on the needles, and it's longer than my wingspan. I guess the needles are a little bit shorter than my wingspan, but then the blanket is quite bunched up on the needles. So it's definitely going to be a very large blanket, and I do have a lot of skeins to use, so it's going to be quite long as well. So I've got full skeins like these ones, and then ones that I had caked up but then decided not to use. I know that this one's from Hello Stella, this one's from Hedgehog Fibres. Then I also have some Suri that I'm going to include as well. So this one's from Full Moon Fibres. I even have a skein of Slub that I'm going to try and include. Whoops, that's upside down. That one's also from Full Moon Fibres. And then I've got just scraps. So this is something that was left over from my short slip extravaganza. Not shortography, my slip extravaganza. What else have I got? I've got this here. Watson played with this, that's why it's a shambles. But this is left over from two projects actually. I've used this in both my throwover sweater and my hat I knit for my sister-in-law. So this is going to get used for a third project. This is some Qing fiber suri. Yeah, there's just lots of bits and pieces in here that I'm really excited to be using. I've even got some mini skeins. These are from Blush Yarns that will be thrown in as well. So yeah, lots of little bits and pieces. I'm really excited to work on this, and after picking it back up the other day, I'm even more excited again. My lesson learnt is that it's something that I need to make sure that I don't put down for a very long time, because I did forget where I was up to because I did not write that down. And now I've discovered that I did not do the right 2 rows that I thought I was supposed to do. So my next task is to work out what to do next so that I don't have to rip back 2 really long rows, because I'm still not sure which 2 rows I should have done. It's fine. The pattern looks fine. The chevron pattern that I'm doing at the moment, like, it works. But when I'm starting the next pattern, the next section, there's 3 different pattern sections. So there's this one there with the eyelets, there's this one here with the chevrons, and then there's like a feather and fan lace section as well. Yeah, I'm just not sure what my transition to the next section will look like. So I just have to sit down and read the pattern and work that one out to see what I need to do to kind of fix that up a little bit, because I would ideally like to just carry on instead of having to go back and rip out and redo those 2 rows, since I have had to rip back an entire row in this, and it does take quite a long time. So that's my big stash busting project that I am going to be working on. It's obviously going to be a long-term project because it's going to be massive, and I've got a lot of yarn there to use up. But that's really exciting. And then my other kind of knitting plans that I have, I did swatch a couple of weeks ago. I did 3 swatches just with projects that I had been thinking of casting on or yarn that I'm wanting to use. So the first swatch is this one here. So this is for the Oversized Seasons cardigan. It is in Flock Fibre DK in the pecan colorway, or pecan, I say pecan, colorway, and then the fuzzy yarn is Sadness Gun Tin Silk Mohair, but I'm not sure which colorway it is. I can't remember. I'll have to put it down there. And then the next swatch is also this is knit in half Fisherman's Rib, and this one is also knit in half Fisherman's Rib. So this is a swatch for the Strier cardigan by Andrea Mowry. So the main color is Knitting for Olive Merino, yes, in the colorway Marzipan. And then the mini skeins are from Sewrella Yarn's Spring Tonals collection. So I bought the mini set for those and chose some that I wanted to include. I haven't knit with Knitting for Olive Merino before. I've got some of their mohair. Actually, I lie. I have knit with it before, but I've held it with mohair. Whereas this is the first time I've held it on its own. And it's nice. It feels nice. And it's nice to knit with as well. It's just a little bit stretchier than I expected it to be. I feel like there's quite a bit of give in the yarn, so that was a little bit of a surprise to begin with, but I didn't have any issues working with it, and I think it looks really nice, and I think the stitch definition is really nice as well. So that will be a cast on at some point in time soon. And then the third swatch I did is for the Louvre sweater by Petite Knit, and this is knit with Explorer Knits in the Lone Wolf colorway in her Denali sock base, and then it's held with a Suri alpaca. That again, I'll pop it down here. So I do quite like this. I don't think it tones down the Lone Wolf colorway too much. I do love the Lone Wolf colorway, so I was concerned that it was going to detract from it a little bit, but I think it's okay, and it's really nice and soft, so that'll be a really nice one to wear when it's finished as well. So those are 3 future cast-ons. Now that I've done the swatches, they are washed and they are blocked. I have only measured this one, and my gauge is a little bit tight, so when I do cast it on, because I think this one will be the first I cast on, when I do cast it on, I will go up a size. I won't go up a needle size because I like the fabric of this, and I don't really want it to be any looser because I think it will then be a little bit holey, and I don't think the stitch definition will be as nice. So I will go up a size in the pattern and a size above so that it still fits me. So that's another future cast on. So, as I briefly alluded to earlier, what was I talking about when I can't even remember. I briefly alluded to earlier that I went to the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show. Dean and I went together, and it was a really fun day. And I do have a couple of acquisitions from that show. So if acquisitions and live chat is not your thing, then that's all I've got to go. So thank you for watching. But if you do want to see what I purchased and hear a little bit about the wool show and hear a little bit about what I've been up to, then I would love to have you keep watching. So the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show is held yearly in Bendigo, which is about an hour and a half hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half drive from where I live. And I have been twice before, but by myself. And then this time is the first time Dean has come with me. We were going to go together last year, but COVID ruined that one well and truly. That was a really awful situation, actually, because the vendors and everything, like, they had all set up, and then the state government decided that day, the day of the setup, that we were going to go into another lockdown, effective basically immediately of midnight that night. So everyone had to pack up everything and go home, which was, I know, very devastating for all of the people who were going to vend there. Most people were able to list things online or sell things via Instagram, and there was definitely a big push to purchase from people over that weekend to support them, because they had, you know, missed out on definitely a significant amount of income from you know, people who wouldn't be shopping online and all of those sorts of things. So it was really nice that the show could happen again. I don't really go just to shop. I did shop, but I love watching the working dogs, and the sheep shearing competition is also one of my favorite things to watch. So you know, I'm going for the yarn, but also all of the other things as well. And I would say that Dean and I spent more time watching the other things than we did going around looking at the yarn stores. So I had a really fun day, because I just really like the other stuff as well as a little bit of shopping. I loved watching the working dogs. It was freezing cold outside, but that was okay. And then I really enjoyed watching the sheep shearing as well. So those are kind of my types of things that I really like. But the shopping was also lots of fun, and looking at all of the knitty things. Like, they had the Knitters Guild had their displays of all of their competition entries and all of those sorts of things. So that was really fun to wander around and have a look at all of the very talented people that you know, dabble in the fibre arts industry, whether it is just knitting, whether it's weaving, whether it's spinning yarn, dyeing yarn, all of those sorts of things. So that was really fun. So the very first thing I purchased, which I purchased within about 10 minutes of getting there, because I love this bag so much, although it doesn't have a project yet to go in it. This bag is by Yarn Creative, and it's a little sheepy bag. So the fabric is really cute, but also the bag is just really cool because it has a rod. It's sturdier than just a piece of wire. But it's got like a metal rod threaded in through the top of the bag to create a frame. So it opens all the way up, as you can see. And then when you put it down, it's got a really big box bottom. And so when you put it down and you have the frame open, it sits completely open. So that's a really cool, I was just looking outside at what might be the postie. So no, he's going to the neighbour, so Watson won't be barking. But yeah, it's really cool because then it sits flat and it sits open, so you can see everything that's inside your bag and you can access it really easily. So love this bag, super cute, but also really a practical, functional bag. Inside, I have some of the skeins that I purchased. So I have this one here from Hodgepodge Skeins. And this is called the High Tea Sock Set. And it is a 75-25, 75 merino wool, 25 nylon. And yeah, it's just a really fun little bit of bright, little bit of pastel, a few speckles, colourway, and then it has these two mini skeins, which I love together. So that is that sock set. And then I purchased another skein from Hodgepodge as well. So this one here, and this one is called Bananarama. So it's just really fun, and I want some fun banana socks. And I don't know where she gets her yarn from. This is a really soft base, like really soft and squishy. And then the other two sock skeins that I bought, or sock sets that I bought, were both from Melbourne City Dye Works. And this is in her Eco sock set, in her Eco base. So it is 80% superwash merino and 20% bamboo. So I'm very interested to knit with these. They feel nice and soft. It's interesting because they're both... Yeah, this is an 80 gram sock set, so it's a little bit smaller than 100 grams, and then a 20 gram mini. And yeah, I'm just interested to see how it knits up. I think the color is super pretty. So this one is Pop Art with a grey mini skein to go with it. And then this one is Rue, and it's more of a grey toned yarn with a bright yellow. The mini is probably a little bit brighter than what it's showing up on camera, but a yellow mini skein. And then the other thing that I purchased is another bag. And so this one is also from Melbourne City Dye Works. So it has a drawstring at the top. It's very roomy inside. It's got my blanket at the moment. And it has a couple of pockets on the top, so it's got a pocket that you can just slide your hand into, and then it also has a zip pocket as well, so if you've got things that are going to fall out, and then the two handles on the top. So then you can pull the drawstring, and then it looks like that. So the fabric's really cool with all of these little ladies wearing different hats. And this one works quite well as like a little handbaggy type bag as well. Dean had a CrossFit competition last weekend, and I took some knitting with me while I was watching, and not only knitting but other bits and pieces as well, and I ended up using this as my bag that I took with me. So I was able to fit in not just my knitting, but you know, some snacks and other bits and pieces that I wanted in my phone and those things. So yeah, this is another really nice bag that I also purchased at the Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show. I guess I've already talked a little life going to the wool show. Dean had a CrossFit competition, so that was fun to go and watch. Maybe I'll put in some footage or a photo if he gives me permission to do so. Otherwise, work. We're in week 4. We've finished week 4 of school of a 10-week term, so that's been busy, tiring. We had our athletics carnival on Friday, so that was fun but also very tiring. I've been going back to the gym, which has been lots of fun. And then what else have we been up to? I don't know. Just really... Oh, we did an orienteering event. There was actually one this morning as well, but we were going to go to it, and then we decided that we had lots of things that we wanted to do around the house today, and driving to that and doing that probably wasn't conducive to getting the other things done that we wanted to do this weekend. So we decided to stay home, but we did that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that was really fun. That was the first time we had done it. We chose the hard short course. Yes, I think we did the hard short course. So that involved finding different control points where you had to scan your little doodacky and follow the map, which had symbols on it instead of words, and you had to go to each place in order. So that was really fun. That was at a place called Gels Park, which is about an hour from us, so it was quite a drive. The one that was supposed to be on this weekend was a little bit closer, but again, we decided that it was probably better to just get some bits and pieces done around the house. So now that I'm almost finished recording my podcast, we will go and do that next. Yesterday we went out for breakfast and went to the board game shop, so that was really nice. And that's going to bring me to my next thing, and will be my last thing for the podcast, I think. I don't think I've forgotten anything. In my first episode, I talked about a board game, and then since then, I've been so stressed about the length of my podcast that I have never done it again. But I've decided that it seems like my podcasts generally end up being about an hour, and I'm just going to run with that's okay, and I'm going to talk about the board game. So, just reach over and get it. So we went to the board game shop yesterday. There was one in particular that I was looking for, but then we purchased a couple of others that we had been interested in for quite some time. Well, Dean didn't even know anything about this one that I'm about to talk about, but I had seen it on Instagram and on, I think, a YouTube video talked about, and it's really pretty, and you can get me to be interested in a board game if it is pretty. So we ended up purchasing it, a little bit of a gamble since we didn't know heaps about it, aside from some people saying that it was good, and we played it yesterday and we really enjoyed it. So this is a board game called Meadow, and as you can see by the front cover, it is beautiful. The artwork is so nice, and it's just as nice on the inside. It is a game where the theme is that you're wandering through the forest and you're collecting, you're observing things and you're taking notes from your observations and things like that. So there's a central board that has a set of cards on it, and these are the types of cards that you see. So they're really pretty cards. Oops, one's upside down. Cute little hair. So the idea is that you are collecting cards from the middle and placing them in your own meadow, and then you have to have different requirements, different symbols in order to place new cards into your meadow, and based on how difficult it is to place the cards are worth different points. So they're worth 1, 2, 3 or 4 points, and you can then at the end count all of the points that you've got from your cards. There's some other little goals that you can use and to get points, and then you have a limited number of actions that you can take during the course of a round. So you only have five cards they're called path tokens, they look like this, that allow you to choose cards, and they let you choose cards from certain places on the central board. So it can get to a point where your card options are more limited than you would like them to be. But yes, it was really fun. We both really enjoyed playing it, and I am looking forward to playing it again after we have learnt the other new games. I think this is a friendly game for new people. I don't know, maybe not a first game. You probably could play it as your first game, but definitely one for if you are interested in board games or want to give some a try, then I would definitely suggest having a look-see at the Game-Meadow. So that is my board game recommendation for my knitting podcast. Yes, so I think that's about all I have to talk about. I'm sorry that it has been so long. I don't hope. I am going to record a podcast in another couple of weeks, and I will have some definitely half-finished objects. I definitely will have some single socks finished, and I would really like to also have the colouring book Raglan finished by my next podcast as well. So I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time with some new finished objects, maybe some new whips, and definitely some progress on what I have shown you today. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my podcast today, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I love reading the comments, and I do reply to the comments, sometimes not straight away, but I do reply to your comments. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I really appreciate you and you watching my channel. Let me know what you have been knitting, what you've been up to, and I will see you next time. Bye!